Hi, y'all. This is Kristen Chenoweth.
Hi, I'm Gloria Stefan.
This is Sarah Bareilles.
Hi, I'm Patty Lapone.
This is Lin-Manuel Miranda. You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Welcome, everyone, to one of the busiest seasons on Broadway and an all-new episode of the Theater Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Seals, and given the sheer amount of shows opening in March and April leading up to Tony nominations in May, there are so many amazing people to talk to that are starring in shows right now, so I decided to release 2 new episodes a week for the foreseeable future because there's just so much great content to bring you. Our guest today, Joy Woods, is no exception to this list of amazing people to talk to, as she recently just opened The Notebook on Broadway as Middle Allie. The Notebook being, of course, one of the most anticipated shows of the season, and for good reason. Joy is still relatively fresh out of school from AMDA, where she went, and already has a couple amazing credits to her name. She's definitely someone to keep your eye on in this industry because she's still so young and already getting offers, meaning she doesn't have to audition. And also in another episode or two, I haven't quite set the release schedule at the time of this recording, I have an episode in the can with her Notebook counterpart, Ryan Vasquez, so that'll be released very soon. Find me online on all the socials, tag me in your stories, share this podcast with a friend. And now, everybody, please enjoy this episode with Joy Woods.
Here you go. 1, 2, 3.
Today's guest made her Broadway debut in 2022, taking over the role of Survivor Catherine Parr in 6. She was part of the ongoing hit production of the off-Broadway production of Little Shop of Horrors, returning to play the role of Audrey in 2023 after originating the role of Chiffon in the original 2019 revival cast. Additional credits include the 2020 production of Mac and Mabel at City Center Encores!
Ooh.
The viral Ratatouille the musical that happened on TikTok, and a 2023 production of I Can Get It For You Wholesale off Broadway, and a 2023 production of Dreamgirls, which took place in my old stomping grounds at Raleigh Memorial Auditorium. She has now just opened The Notebook on Broadway as Middle Allie. I'm not crying, you're crying. Joy Woods, welcome to the Theater Podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Let's talk about Raleigh. I love Raleigh.
Let's do it.
Raleigh
Me
Memorial.
too.
Yeah, I grew up actually in a tiny town west of Winston-Salem. If you know, you just follow I-40 west and you hit 421 in Winston-Salem, and that's where I grew up. But I always say I'm from Raleigh because that's where I went to college, and that was my first professional gig with Casey Nicola as my director at Raleigh Memorial. So
Wow.
that place has a very strong tie for me. This was years ago when before Casey was Casey. How did you like it down there?
I really, really loved it. I had always wanted to do Dreamgirls, and I had just come back from being in Chicago doing Notebook, and I did a few weeks covering at Little Shop, and I was just feeling antsy and like I wanted to do something new, and Dreamgirls came into my life, and it was such a good group. And it was springtime, it was getting nice, and I got to drive again, and I had Bojangles for the first time. It was an excellent experience that I hold very near and dear.
So the rest of this whole podcast is going to be about our love for Bojangles.
I had it every day. It was bad.
Dude,
It was bad.
when I go down, I can't stomach it like I used to because I'm 43. But in college, my suite mates and I would go 8 times a week on average. We would there were days when we would go for more than one meal, and we brought out the exact change that we needed. We had it down to a science. Anyway, North Carolina Bojangles, so good. Anyway, we digress. So, where did you grow up? I shared my story. What's your story?
I grew up in Chicago.
Yeah?
So I hadn't been home in so long, so getting to do The Notebook out of town at home was a blessing. My parents got to see the show so many times. The place where we stayed was right across the street from where a family member lived, so it was truly the stomping grounds. It was really great.
Well,
I was at home.
How young were you, or I guess how old were you? Yeah, how young were you? We'll go with that. How young were you when you started really getting into theater, performing, do you remember when the bug bit you?
Started out as a dancer, so I thought that, that was going to be my track wherever dance led me, whether it was in a company or performing in some way was what I wanted to do, dancing. And then
Oh, how
the
young
end
were
of
you
my
when you
sophomore
started that?
year, when I started dancing,
Yeah.
seriously, I think seventh grade.
Okay.
I dabbled, as much as your parents would pay for you to dabble growing up. But by the time I actually wanted to do it, like going week after week and wanting to get better and everything, that was probably towards the end of middle school. And halfway through high school, my friend on the dance team took me to go see the musical, which was Adam's Family. And I said, I want to do that. They're singing and dancing. I want to get in on it. And did.
The singing, like, you can sing. You got some pipes.
Oh, thank you.
And
I tried.
and I would have thought, oh, singing came first, but the dancing came first. That's interesting. Did you always have a natural singing ability or did you have to work on that at this time? Like, where did when you saw Adam's Family, when you were like, oh, I guess I can sing now, did you start taking lessons? Did you start, I mean, what was this point where you sort of transitioned?
I have 5 other siblings. They're all older than me. And the 2 oldest ones are musicians. And they went to school for music. And my sister's room was on the other side of my wall. And whatever she was listening to, I was listening to. And when I inherited her MP3, I learned the songs that she was listening to and learning how to sing. And so all the kids on the school bus hated me because I would be singing all the time. But I never thought it would be something that I could do for a living. That was dance.
Well, in high school especially, cliques form, social tiers form, groups of talented and not so talented people form. Like, when you were at this point in high school, then, if you're singing on the bus or wherever you're singing, like, did you know that you were good? Were you like, I'm better than old that person on in front of the bus or whatever?
I think it was more so like I wanted to join in and be in on the fun, but it wasn't really clicking that I was like good at it because I don't know, high school people are catty. That's the way things go, and whatever shows were picked were definitely based on the amount of people and the kind of people you have that year. Was I the lead in a few of them? Yes, but that was just basically based off of who was in the program at the time and what they had going on. So I never really thought that it could be something I'd do for a living until the end of my senior year.
Well, the end of your senior year, I mean, that's already past the point when people normally decide, I'm going to school for this and this is what I want to do. I mean, so were you kind of on the fence about all of this getting to that point? What else did you want to do? And
dance.
So you were definitely like, I'm going to perform. You just didn't know in what sort of capacity?
Yeah, I thought dancing was going to be my ticket into the industry. I knew that I wanted to do theater, but I still had the idea that that was going to be a far off dream, and then I was going to be doing my survival jobs and working and making money and figuring out a way to get in. But I went to a unified audition at the high school theater festival that year, and I got into AMDA, and they gave me money, and I was like, that's my ticket to New York, and I'll figure the rest out when I get there.
Well, the youngest of 5, you said, right?
6.
Oh, the youngest of 6. You have 5 older siblings, right? So youngest of 6. Geez. Okay. And how many of them you said 2 of them went to school for music?
Well, let me say this, since this is being recorded, I want the world to know they're all musicians. They're all very talented, but 2 of them are writing and releasing.
Okay. So where did the music
I want to blow all of their spots up.
Good. All right. I mean, obviously, when you have 6 siblings, all they're into music, there's got to come from somewhere. Where did that whole, where did the family love for music come from?
Church. The choirs, the plays,
singing, playing,
the tambourines,
everything.
By the time I got old enough to not be in the dance team anymore, or to be on the dance team, we had like switched churches, and I held resentment towards everyone in the world for it. So I held on to music when I couldn't be dancing.
What was the resentment? You mean like because your social structure kind of got mixed up?
Because I wanted to be on the dance team. I wanted to be waving the ribbons, doing the dances, because my
Wait.
mom choreographed.
There was a church dance team?
Oh my God, yeah.
Really?
That's a thing. That's a thing. That's a thing.
Wait.
Church arts is very much a thing and was. And my mother was she's a dancer, and she was like the choreography, the head of the dance team. She was in the choir. She would choreograph all of the dances and in our basement. And so everybody would be at the house dancing in the basement, and I'm just supposed to stay upstairs. How rude. They wouldn't even let me down there. So yeah, I was mad about it at 7 years old.
Not where I came from. I told you, like tiny town North Carolina, there were no church dance teams that I was ever with. So this is the first I've heard it. Choir, yes. Shows, performances, yes. Dance teams specifically, no way. That is so cool that you had that opportunity, and it was literally in your basement too.
Mm-hmm.
So then,
well, that's where they would learn it. They
Right.
would do it at church, but all the fun happened in rehearsal.
Of course. And were you, being the youngest of six then, like were there older siblings that were involved too, and you were just like the youngest one that wasn't allowed down?
My sisters were.
Oh,
They were.
Resentment.
Yeah. To this day.
Like, well, now who's on Broadway? Siblings, eat that.
I don't know if I'd go as far to say that, but a little bit.
Well, this has been recorded, so now it's out there forever. Okay, so going to your career, then you go to college, you go to AMDA, like that is a great place to get your feet wet in the industry.
Yeah.
And so many connections, so much success coming out of AMDA at the American and Musical Dramatic Academy.
Yes.
For those who don't know. About what year was that? I'm trying to get the career timeline going because you got, let's see, Encores, what was that, 2020, and then you're like doing stuff, Catherine Parr in 22, which was after the pandemic. So it's like seems like you graduated at that perfect time to have an industry shut down.
Yeah. I went to AMDA 2 weeks after I graduated high school. I started a summer semester. So in summer 2018, I moved here, and it was a very quick 4-semester program that was supposed to take 2 years. But since I did 2 summers instead, it was a year and a half. And by the end, 2 weeks into my last semester, we had a panel night, and that's where I met my agents. And they just happened to call me the next morning and say, "Hey, we don't know you, but they're auditioning for Little Shop. Would you be interested?" And I said, absolutely. I had no money, so I walked from the dorms, I think that was 30, 40 blocks to Ripley Greer to go audition. I was sweaty. I didn't know what I was doing. And then the world shut down after doing the show for 6 months.
Wait, so Little Shop, this 2019 revival, that was your first professional gig in New York? Mm-hmm. Wow.
I was 19.
Wow, you came out of the gate swinging.
They needed an urchin, and I was that.
you were the perfect urchin. Okay, so you came out, you did that for 6 months. The industry shuts down, and do you go back home to Chicago at this point? Like, are you sticking around in New York trying to make ends meet?
Yeah, I hadn't really had a chance to. I was moving around. I was subleasing once a month for 10 months. So during the pandemic, I was moving around from place to place.
Moved 10 times.
With not enough money to sign a lease. And I was really just roaming. And honestly, part of me needed that freedom because life had started to happen so fast. I turned 21 during the pandemic. I was minding my business, but being equally and safely reckless and unsafely doing all the 21, 20, 22-year-old things. I think I just needed time to grow up a little bit before. I had no idea that life was going to end up like this, but the universe did. So they said, you have your time, you take your moment. I went home maybe once or twice for a week, but I would rather be broken, alone, and free and here than broken and alone and living with my parents in Chicago.
Broke, alone, and free. There's something right there. Um, so then let's see, 22. So the first thing that you did after the pandemic, was that six? I mean,
I
on.
went back to Little Shop for another 6 months.
Oh, right, right. That did come
hmm
first. Right. So you went back as
hmm
Audrey.
No, I was still playing an urchin.
I was still playing the urchin. So wait, okay. I'm getting my timeline all
Let me
confused.
let me lay out the timeline for
Okay,
you.
okay.
So after the pandemic, I went back to Little Shop for 6 months, and then I ended up doing six for 4 months, and then I did the Notebook in Chicago. Came back,
Right.
covered. I was like having dinner and drinks after Notebook in New York, and I got a call saying there's COVID is running rampant. Can you do the show tonight? I was like, yes. Through all the ravioli, I was like drunk on pasta and did the show. And I ended up staying for maybe 2, 3 months, and then I left for Dreamgirls, which was 3 weeks. Came back, and then I did Audrey for the summer.
Oof. Oh,
Yeah,
wow. That's been I mean, shout out to all of the wonder studies and alternates and standbys and
yeah.
everything, right? That has kept this industry going, and especially the Six crew. Speaking of that, there were people like the term universal swing sort of, I
hmm
think, became officially solidified post COVID because you have people like understudies and swings from national tours or from regional productions that are
hmm
literally getting flown across the country or even from New York to London, whatever the case is. I remember what Desi Oakley had to go save a production of Waitress on the West End or something, right?
hmm
Like you've got all this stuff happening all over the place because COVID's just taking people down left and right. And I mean, just
Yeah.
quick shout out, happy snaps to you and everyone who can just put down their plate of pasta and run across the town
No, I
to make
finished
this
it.
happen.
I finished it. I said, it's half hour. You'll see me when you see me. I know how to get dressed. I went on without a wig and without half of my costume. It was a very, very theater moment. It was fun.
Which half? The top half or the bottom half?
I
Everyone's
think,
like,
well, I took my jeans home. They fit me very well, and so I kept them. And I said, I'm not gonna go home and grab them. You need me for the show, so we're gonna wear something else.
oh, you mean
And it
the
was
urchin
fine.
jeans?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I think I
funny.
have 3 pairs of them sitting in that drawer right there from all the times that I've gone to the show and left.
Oh,
So I'm
that's
collecting
awesome.
clothes.
All right. And then through all of this, you're going to Chicago, you're doing the Notebook. I guess, how did you originally, or when did you first hear that the Notebook was being adapted into a musical and your first thought?
I think I keep saying this, but honestly, I'm 24 now and I need to stop. But at the time when I was 22 and it was freshly off of the pandemic, and between those 2 years, I'd only been working for about a year. And this is going to sound like a brag, but this is just the way things happened. I found, you know how Six switches out their casts
Hmm.
once a year. I was not aware of that. And so I think a few weeks after starting the job, I found out that that was happening, and I started to freak out. I was like, oh my God, I just got this job. I don't want to lose it. So I run to my agents like, we gotta figure something out, guys. I don't know what's going on, but let's start finding something else to do. And they would say, it's funny you asked that because we got an offer for you to play Middle Allie in the Notebook. And I was like, first
They
of
were just
all,
sitting on this offer.
I think it happened maybe that day or earlier that week. And so it was just all coincidental. But I said, first of all, there's a Notebook musical. Second of all, Allie. Second of all, Middle Allie. What do all of these things mean? I'm an offer? I've never received an offer straight before. How do they know who I am? I just got here. So it was a lot of questions. It was a lot of questions, a lot of wondering, a lot of imposter syndrome. And by the time I heard the music and got to read the script for the first time, was actually in rehearsal. So it was all just, I was taking a leap, and it paid off really well. I feel very
Wow.
lucky.
There are some adaptations that I'm like, and then you see it and I'm like, yeah, And the Notebook, as soon as I heard, I mean, this was years ago, as soon as I heard the first single, any of the music, I was like, yes, 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 and then the cast started coming out, and then the reviews from Chicago started coming out, and then you get a little icing on the cake with the rain effect. Let's talk about some water. Um,
Yeah.
Because, oh my God, like that, then when it rains on stage, I mean, you have
Gets
a
wet.
creek. You have a creek on stage anyway the whole time, but then it
Yeah.
rains on stage, and that gets its own applause, which is great. That's like one of the iconic moments. Hang on, everybody. We're just going to take a quick break. All right, now we're back. I mean, when you first started putting all this on its feet, you and Ryan Vasquez, your middle Noah, like the two of you guys, you know, what does it take to fall in love with somebody 8 times a week and bring yourself into this character of the Notebook? Which I want to get into the racial differences between the different couples, because that is a very conscious choice made by Shelley Williams and
Michael
Michael
Greif.
Greif and the co-directors. So yeah, I guess I'll stop and ask a question here. Let's go with the falling in love. The falling in love with Ryan and tying the 3 sets of couples together did you find that hard, easy? Like, because you're originating this role now. You get to originate something for the first time, which is amazing.
It's very, very cool, and I'm still pinching myself about it every day. But I think one thing that totally takes the pressure off is being able to share the role with 2 people that are, I consider, masters of their craft, Marianne Plunkett and Jordan Tyson. I get to watch them. We spend so much time watching each other in rehearsal, and every night we're watching each other and learning more about who Allie is and watching her fall in love and struggle with her own life choices every night. And I feel very held and honored to be given the opportunity to like educate myself. It feels more like an education than anything. And in terms of falling in love, I think I've fallen in love with everybody as much as I have to fall in love with Ryan every night. I'm meeting everybody in Chicago for the very first time. We all clicked immediately, and we're all very, very close. We would spend nights after rehearsal hanging out and talking about anything, including the show, not including the show. We would watch movies together. We would go out together. And that relationship hasn't really faltered much in the 2 years that we've all known each other. And I think it's much easier to fall in love with somebody on stage when you're good friends. So you can just have fun and not have to worry about, I don't know what you would worry about. I've gotten so blessed with the best partners of falling in love, including like Jeremy Jordan and Matt Doyle and Little Shop. They're just the best people that you can trust and that you can have fun with. Yeah, I'm grateful.
It's beautiful, and it seems so real and so authentic. And I love, the big moment that, of course, everyone wants to see, has to see from the movie, which is, Noah picking up Allie in the rain in that big scene, which could sound.
They love it.
It is. Side question: I've always wondered, how warm is the water? Is it heated or is it cold?
It's heated.
Is
in
it
Chicago?
good?
It wasn't. So we made sure that it was this time around. It starts off cold, and there's mist falling down,
right.
And water. It's falling from such a high place that once the mist hits you, it's like. But once it starts to pour, it's warm, and it only gets cold once it stops, and the AC in the theater is blasting you.
And the creek too. I mean, everybody's like splashing each other in the creek the whole time, right? Like, how often do you have to go backstage and just dry off, towel off? Is that
one scene?
Really? That's it?
It's a well-oiled machine. We got a wig person, we got a wardrobe person, and like I'm throwing off the wig while I'm taking my clothes off as I'm walking back. She's drying my back while I'm putting new underwear on, just putting the mic in the bra, and then we clear. I put on a jumpsuit. Somebody puts on the wig while I'm putting on shoes and like getting the lipstick off my face while Ryan's getting lipstick off his face because we just finished smooching. And it's a well-oiled machine. We've gotten very good at quick changing out of the rain.
That's always something that's truly impressed me, is the tech that goes into something that's seemingly so simple. On the surface, it's just you dump some water from the stage and it lands, or from the sky and it lands on the stage and blah blah blah. But to make sure that you don't short out your whole stage, and to make sure that that electrically, you've got your water and your electricity that don't mix. And then you want to make sure that you're not getting the band wet and all this other stuff that doesn't need to happen. The automation is going to get all messed up, I'm sure, if water gets in there. Like, do you... I nerd out for a second on this tech stuff because I'm a nerd. I mean, will you watch it go in? Is there like a pool? How does the water not go everywhere it's not supposed to?
Well, there are panels of wood on the floor of the stage, and I think the water falls through there.
I would suspect
I
it has
believe.
to, like makeshift drains.
Yeah, and so it's easy for like it not to remain so wet. And there are 2 curtains of water that fall, so it's a little uniform, honestly. It falls very securely, very safely, and the actual panels of the stage itself are so grippy that we're safe and nobody's slipping and falling. And
yeah,
we had a few of those.
You don't care. You get to kiss Ryan every night. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't care about
I get
water.
the kiss of friends. I don't care.
All right. So getting to put these 3 couples together, did you and Shelley and Michael, like with the cast, did you talk about the differences in race between the different couples being inconsistent on purpose? Because I know she talked to me about it and it was a very conscious choice. So I'm wondering how as a cast you talked about that, and then also unifying between the 3 of you who play Allie. How do you unify that to make one character? So we'll start with the racial question first.
Yeah. I think, honestly, the conversation about race didn't really come up until we heard that negative comments were being made about it.
Really?
Because it was such a non-thing for us. Like, once we established that the time period was different and that, the law wasn't a player in the situation, it was fine. Of course, 3 different couples that are going through the same thing can be seen as the same entity, if that makes any sense. This is a very universal conflict, coming back together, choosing somebody. That's something that everybody that wants to be in love or wants to be in a relationship or wants to connect with anybody goes through. And you don't have to look like a specific person. For the people that think you have to look like a specific person throughout an entire play, theater, where we suspend disbelief, that's why we watch each other on stage, pick up things from each other that are specifically to Allie, whatever she looks like, whether it's her anxieties and the way that she displays that, the way that she says things, gestures. I know the Noahs have some ways that they do that as well, trying to make a thread line of a personality rather than a person, a vessel, has been helpful to us to help the people that are confused.
Are people still confused, though? I mean, it seems incredibly obvious to me when I saw the show. I was like, oh, they're setting this up. It's very clear that these are 3 timelines of the same character, Allie and Noah. And you're right. To your point, the physical appearance of who was playing each of these pairs of characters eventually it melted away, because at the crux of the story, it's just 2 people at the beginning and the middle and the end of their lives together. And I think that's why it's, this is a story that sort of transcends race and even gender to a point, right? It's just people wanting to be in love and wanting to belong. And
wanting to choose what's right for them and what makes them happy.
How often, or do you get distracted by the sheer sobbing, the snotty sobbing? Because I have not heard people cry that hard.
Yeah.
In theater. Yeah. I can't remember how long.
I don't even remember hearing it like that in Chicago. I think people, after the reviews came out in Chicago, whether it was critics or just word of mouth from audiences, people are walking into the show now assuming that they're going to be emotionally devastated or
Yes.
receive some sort of catharsis, so they're ready
Yeah.
for that, and so they go for it when it's time, which is fine. Have the experience that you want to have. But I'll never forget the first time that we experienced that during previews. There was apparently, after the end happens, I don't want to spoil it, but if you want to know, there's an ending that makes people cry. And there was somebody sobbing, and they let out some sort of yelp. And then they said sorry to the audience, like an audience member. And we come on,
Yeah.
literally, and we come on for the last number, and we're walking and we're singing, and it's kind of it's stripped down musically. So it's mainly voices and not a lot of instruments. So we can hear what's going on out there. And because that person said sorry, a lot of people were like laughing, and amongst the laughing and the sniffling, it sounded like a weird disembodied horror sounds, and we were all looking at each other like, what is going on? And that continues to this day, because there's always somebody that has to apologize for their feelings, not in the theater.
Oh man, yeah, it was. I was center section house right, and about my level back on house left. I hear that, and then just the big old. This giant, like, you can tell that just falling down their face, and I was like, oh man, and I'm wiping off my own tears, and someone else is wiping off just all this snot from their face. Yes, that I didn't hear anyone audibly say sorry, but I felt it.
Yeah.
God, it touches people in a way that we just need. We need so much right now. It's finding that sense of belonging with your partner, with your friends, with that's why I just love theater in general, because you can go on this emotional journey with a room full of strangers, and to your point, don't apologize for your feelings in the theater.
Yeah.
Like, that's
As
why
long as
it's
you're
human.
not making it about you, which sometimes people do,
Yeah.
but you're allowed to react however you want to, as long as you're open,
Yeah. What's some of the like one of the most interesting bits of feedback you've gotten so far, or even things you've learned about yourself through this process of creating a role as emotionally deep as this?
I think one thing I love a lot about Allie is, well, she spends a lot of time in the show stepping on toes and saying the wrong thing. And I really admire that, whether or not it's the right thing or not, she says it anyway. And that's something I struggle with, like, at my age and at this place in my life, and being in this industry, saying how I feel and what I think. So I get to be that every night, and hopefully I pick up some tips along the way on how to be more vocal about what I feel and what I need.
Yeah. So any bits of feedback from the audience too? Do you stage door? Or is it still a little too soon with COVID? And whatnot?
I do from time to time, but I think honestly, I'm still working up the stamina to vocally, energetically, to do the show. So sometimes I'm just a little spent, and so I haven't been stage dooring as much as I usually do. But I think the weirdest piece of feedback I've gotten,
Not even weird, just
hasn't been,
really stands out. Something that stands out.
oh, well, there have been a lot of people who have had parents, family members that have had a similar losing that person, like with dementia or Alzheimer's or something like that. And they've been very touched, and just saying thank you for being a mirror for that, so that they could have a bit of catharsis about it. Yeah. But I think the weirdest piece of feedback I've gotten is somebody told me that if the show were any better, it'd be bad.
What does that mean?
And they walked away. And they walked away after that. And I was like, well, I'm going to remember that forever, because I don't know what you meant. But other than, yeah, people say weird things when they're feeling and they don't know how to say it but
What on earth?
I have no idea what you could have meant by that.
You were so good that if you were any better, you wouldn't be as good.
Yeah.
What does
Yeah.
that even mean?
I spent a lot of time trying to figure it out, and I just gave up. So now it's a funny thing I say.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Like, yeah, that could be the new thing. That's the new sus that the kids are saying. You start
Yeah.
something new. You're like, man, you are so good, you're bad. Like, what? Yeah, okay. Hang on, everybody. We're just going to take a quick break. All right, now we're back. I mean, out of everything, the season right now is so crowded with new musicals.
Yeah, dude.
And it's all crazy good stuff. Like, so what is it? I mean, if you have to tell people who are listening now, like, they have to make a choice. They need to come see the Notebook. What are you going to tell them now that's going to get them be like, to come see you, come see the show, come see the rain, come see the crying and the snot-filled audience. It is so
I
good.
think come to see a slice of life, come to see a mirror, come to see a reason why love exists, come to experience your teenage self again watching The Notebook with the rom-coms and the romance, come to experience butterflies secondhand.
Oh.
And I just, there aren't many musicals that people in their later years are the leads and get to play such youth and such discovery at that age. And I think that's something that Marianne and Dorian do. So, like, I'm tearing up thinking about it, like, that they do so beautifully. And to watch them fall in love at that stage in their life every night is absolutely worth buying a ticket to see.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, the two of them, their scenes, I mean, everybody's scenes, it's just perfect. I don't know how to describe it because the two of them, they bring a wisdom and an experience, a life experience that no one else on that stage has because of the real life ages that they are. And then like you and Ryan are your own, like, I mean, middle-aged, sort of confused, not middle-aged, but, you know, like middle of the relationship, sort of confused about who you are and where you want to be in life. And, you know, going through a lot of what I think people go through every single day in their actual lives. Like, am I doing the right thing? Am I with the right person? Am I saying the right thing? And then like the younger version of Allie and Noah too, is just like youthful invincibility, right? Like when you're that young, you think you can do whatever you want.
Yeah. And there's such power in that, you know, you can go so much further when playing that because one, remembering what that feels like, and just you're right. The feeling of being invincible when you're young is so expansive, and they play that so well.
Yeah. And it's written so well. And I truly love this production. So everybody listening, go see it. It's just so good. It's so
good. It's good. I promise.
Joy and Ryan. Oh, so good. Okay. So I want to actually do a little bit of a fun little game segment that has started to be new here on the pod. You're gonna give me a number between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, between 1 and 8. Which will correspond to a musical on a list of 1 through 8 I have. 60 seconds, you got to give me the plot of that musical. These are popular, so you shouldn't be.
Okay.
You shouldn't be.
I don't know. I don't know. Okay.
Okay, ready? All right, 1 through 8. Give me a number.
4.
All right. You should get this one. 60 seconds on the clock. Give me the plot to Hamilton. Go.
60 seconds remaining.
Well, it's a bastard orphan son of a whore that migrates from the islands to America during the revolution, and he wants really bad to fight, but
45 seconds
instead
remaining.
he decides to write and gets into big beef with this guy Burr, and then he writes a lot and does a lot of stuff because he's writing so much. He's at the right hand of George Washington. Washington
30
dies.
seconds remaining.
And now that you're asking me, I can't remember anything. So he dies, his wife does an orphanage, and the beef with Burr is never settled, even though he gets shot.
15 seconds?
15
Nothing about
seconds
America?
remaining.
So, Hamilton is a story about a guy who came from
Ryan
the islands
would be so disappointed in me.
to America, and his wife started an orphanage. That's all Aaron Burr's fought with this guy Aaron Burr. That's all Hamilton's known for. That's it.
$10 bill.
Didn't do any. That's all. That's why he's on the $10 bill. You heard it here first, kids. All right. So
Sweating.
All right, the 3 standard closing questions that I use to wrap up the episodes. Give you a second to calm down. Woosah. All right, first one very simply is, what motivates you?
Education. Learning more about being alive and what in every facet of that. Between people, between things, what makes you grow, what makes people the way they are. Learning about that motivates me to do what I do.
What advice would you give to your younger self and younger people listening now, starting out down a similar path?
You know, this kind of goes against the grain, but just in my personal experience, you don't have as much time as you think you do. Your time is coming sooner than you think, so prepare.
Be prepared. I got it.
Mm-hmm.
If you can only see one show for the rest of your life, but you can see it as many times as you want, what would you see?
Maybe The Notebook. I really, really like this show. Or 6. I really like 6.
Both equally good for very different reasons. I do. My kids love 6 too.
Bro, it's so good.
Yeah.
It was a party every night.
Well, where can we find you online and connect with you on social media?
You can find me at Joy N Woods, and for Nicole, on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter.
And always you can get more of me at Threads, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, you know, all the places. Leave a rating and review wherever you're listening now. Help spread the word and help this podcast grow. Thanks to Jukebox the Ghost for the intro and outro music. And Joy Woods, thank you so much. I've enjoyed this conversation.
This has been so much fun. Thank you so much for having me, Alan.
Take a deep breath, make the world a little colorful.